The bell above the diner door jingled, and in swaggered Brad Morrison, the man everyone in town knew for his mouth and his temper. He scanned the booths like a wolf sniffing for prey until his gaze landed on a frail, elderly black veteran sipping coffee alone. Brad's grin curled cruelly. "Didn't know they let relics like you take up space here," he sneered, loud enough to hush the entire diner. Sam Carter, his back straight despite the years and the cane at his side, didn't flinch. He simply set his cup down, eyes calm, steady. That silence made Brad angrier. With a shove, Brad knocked Sam's cane away, the clatter echoing across the floor. Then came the slap, sharp, humiliating, shocking the room into stunned stillness. Phones came out. Strangers held their breath. What Brad never imagined. The quiet man he just struck was father to the most powerful security chief in the nation. The diner stayed frozen, every patron caught between fear and disbelief. Brad Morrison stood over Sam Carter, chest heaving, a twisted smirk plastered across his face. His hands still tingled from the slap, and the sting of arrogance burned hotter than the fresh coffee on the tables. "Say something, old man," Brad barked, his voice dripping with malice. "Or are you too broken down to defend yourself?" Sam's eyes lifted slowly, calm yet piercing, like a soldier who had seen storms far worse than this. He didn't answer. That silence, the quiet defiance, gnawed at Brad more than any insult could. Maria, the young waitress, rushed forward. "Brad, that's enough," she snapped, her hands trembling as she tried to put herself between them. Brad shoved her aside with a sneer. "Stay out of this. This trash doesn't belong here." "None of them do." The words cut deep, bouncing off the chrome walls of the diner. People exchanged uneasy glances. A man at the corner booth raised his phone higher, recording every second. Others whispered, too afraid to intervene, but unwilling to look away. Sam adjusted his glasses with steady hands, refusing to show weakness. His cane lay on the floor, but he didn't bend to pick it up. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, worn leather wallet. Slowly, deliberately, he opened it and set a military ID on the counter. For a moment, the room shifted. A couple of older men recognized the emblem, their eyes widening with respect. But Brad only laughed, mocking the gesture. "Look at this fossil," Brad jeered. "Waiting some dusty badge, like it means something. Those days are over, old man. This is my town now." The insult hung heavy in the air. The veteran's ID sat in the neon light, a silent reminder of service and sacrifice. Sam didn't argue. Instead, he picked up his phone, pressed one button, and brought it to his ear. His voice was quiet but carried authority that couldn't be ignored. "It's time," he said simply. Then he ended the call. Brad blinked, confused. "Who the hell do you think you're calling? Your retirement home nurse?" He barked out a laugh, turning to the crowd for approval. No one joined in. Instead, the diner's atmosphere shifted, a low hum of anticipation replacing the earlier silence. Sam leaned back, folding his weathered hands on the counter. His composure unnerved Brad more than any threat could have. Outside, in the distance, the faint sound of engines rumbled. Dark SUVs rolled into view, their tinted windows glinting beneath the morning sun. They pulled up sharply outside the diner, black tires crunching on gravel. Every head in the diner turned. Maria gasped. Brad's smirk faltered for the first time. The door swung open. Men in dark suits and earpieces filed inside, scanning the room with sharp precision. And then, in unison, their eyes found Sam Carter. The diner was silent, save for the heavy thud of boots on the linoleum floor. The men in suits moved like a tide of authority, their eyes sweeping every corner before locking onto Sam Carter. "Sir," one of them said firmly, his voice carrying both respect and urgency, "are you all right?" Sam gave a slight nod, his calm demeanor unchanged. The entire diner gasped. "A federal agent, here, for him?" Brad's smirk twitched nervously, but he quickly forced a laugh. "What's this?" A retirement home field trip? You suits got lost? He puffed out his chest, trying to regain control of the room. But his voice lacked the swagger it carried minutes before. The confidence was cracking. The lead agent ignored Brad completely. He leaned down toward Sam, speaking quietly but loud enough for others to hear. Director Carter is en route. He said to secure the area until he arrives. Director Carter. The words rippled through the diner like a lightning strike. Patrons glanced at one another, realization dawning in their widened eyes. Phones, already recording, trembled in hands as whispers spread. Brad's face twisted. Director Carter? Who the hell is that? Sam finally spoke, his voice even, deliberate. My son. The room held its breath. Brad staggered back a step, eyes darting between Sam and the agents. Why your son? You mean, the Homeland Security guy? His voice cracked, no longer booming but shrinking under the weight of the revelation. The agent gave a curt nod. Head of Homeland Security. And you just assaulted his father. Brad's bravado drained from his face like color from a dying flame. Wait, I didn't know. I didn't mean, his words tumbled over each other, panicked, desperate. Sam's gaze never wavered. You meant every word, he said quietly, his tone carrying more weight than a shout ever could. Brad's hands twitched as if he wanted to run, but the agents had already closed in, forming a wall of dark suits between him and the door. His swagger was gone, replaced by sweat trickling down his temple. Maria stepped forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. She turned to Sam, whispering, You could have told us who you really are. Sam shook his head gently. I shouldn't have to, he replied. Respect shouldn't come from power. It should come from decency. Those words hit harder than Brad's slap had minutes earlier. The room absorbed them, the lesson settling deep into the silence. Outside, more SUVs pulled up. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. News of the incident had already begun spreading online, thanks to the diners who had uploaded their recordings. The video of Brad's slap and Sam's quiet phone call was racing through social media like wildfire. Brad's legs buckled. He sank into a booth, hands raised as if surrendering could undo what had already been done. Please, he stammered, I didn't know who he was. I was just messing around. Sam's eyes narrowed. You weren't just messing around. You showed the world exactly who you are. The agents hauled Brad up, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. His protests rang hollow, drowned out by the hum of recording phones and the murmurs of witnesses. Then, the diner doors swung open once more. A man in a tailored suit strode in, flanked by security detail. His presence commanded the room instantly. It was Michael Carter, the Director of Homeland Security. The atmosphere shifted again, electricity crackling through the diner. Brad's face went pale. His nightmare had only just begun. Michael Carter entered the diner like a storm in human form. Tall, sharp-suited, with an air of command carved from years of leadership, his very presence pulled the air tighter. His security detail fanned out instantly, but Michael's eyes locked only on one person, his father. Dad, he said, his voice steady but lined with concern. Sam gave him a small nod, the calm of a soldier who had weathered countless battles. I'm fine, son. That quiet assurance only made Michael's jaw clench harder. He turned then, his gaze landing on Brad Morrison. The bully, once so loud, now looked like a schoolboy caught cheating, his hands trembling in handcuffs. Michael stepped closer, the room silent but for the pounding heartbeat of everyone inside. You laid hands on my father, he said, each word deliberate, sharp. You disrespected a man who wore this nation's uniform before you were even born. Brad swallowed hard, his throat bobbing. I didn't know. That's the problem, Michael cut him off coldly. You didn't care who he was. You looked at him and saw someone you thought you could humiliate. You thought no one would stop you. Every patron felt the weight of those words. Maria stood frozen, tears shining in her eyes. The man in the corner booth, still recording, zoomed in, knowing this confrontation would be seen by millions. Brad tried to muster his arrogance again, forcing out a weak laugh. "Come on, it was just a joke, a little push, that's all." Michael leaned forward until he was eye level with Brad. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You struck my father. You spat your poison in front of witnesses. That's not a joke. That's a crime, and it's the mask off your character." Brad's eyes darted around the diner, searching for support, but the faces that had once looked away in fear now stared at him with disgust. No one would stand with him. Sam, still seated calmly, finally spoke. "Michael." His tone was measured, the kind that could command even in its gentleness. Michael turned slightly, his rage checked by respect for the man who raised him. Sam's words were not for his son alone, but for the entire diner. This is what hate does. It makes men small, loud, desperate for control they never had. Don't let him make the story about his punishment. Let it be about dignity. Michael inhaled deeply, grounding himself. Then he faced Brad again, his voice steel but steady. "You're going to face justice, not because my father is my father, but because no man in this country is above the law. Not me. Not you. No one." The agents tightened their grip on Brad, pulling him upright. The clink of handcuffs echoed like a closing chapter. Brad's final attempt at defiance came out as a choked plea. "This'll ruin me, my business, my name. Please, you can't." Michael's eyes hardened. "You did that yourself the moment you raised your hand to him. Actions have consequences." Outside, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Local police had arrived, summoned not by power but by truth. Reporters were already gathering, cameras flashing against the diner's glass. The once ordinary cafe had become the stage for a reckoning. Brad's fate was sealed. But the true climax, the moment the world would remember, was still seconds away. Brad Morrison's knees buckled as the agents pulled him toward the center of the diner. The once proud swagger that had carried him through every bar fight, every bullying encounter, every racist tirade was gone. His face, red and sweating, now looked like a mask melting under heat. Phones hovered from every angle. The slap he delivered to Sam Carter minutes earlier was already replaying online, but this moment, the public dismantling of Brad's arrogance, was what the world was waiting to see. Michael Carter stood tall, every inch of authority radiating from him, yet his gaze was fixed on his father. For all the power he commanded, the only thing that mattered was the quiet dignity of the old veteran sitting at the counter, coffee still half full. "Take him outside," Michael ordered. Brad stumbled as the agents pushed him forward. But before they reached the door, Sam raised a hand. "Wait." The room stilled. Even the agents froze. Sam's voice, calm but resonant, carried more authority than any badge. Brad turned, his cuff wrist shaking. For the first time, he looked small, just a man stripped of his bluster. Sam rose slowly, leaning on his cane. The clatter it had made earlier now seemed like a drumbeat of justice. He stepped forward until he stood inches from the man who had slapped him. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto Brad's. "You thought I was weak," Sam said softly, so that everyone had to lean in to hear. "You thought my age, my skin, my quiet meant I would bow. But strength isn't in noise. It's in restraint. And power isn't in fists. It's in truth." The diner fell utterly silent. Not even a breath dared interrupt. Brad's lips trembled, desperate to form words. I didn't mean." "You meant every second," Sam cut him off, voice firm now. "And the whole world will remember it. Not because of who my son is, but because your hate showed everyone who you are." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The man in the corner booth lowered his phone for a second, overcome by the gravity of the words. Maria wiped at her eyes, whispering under her breath, "Amen." Michael nodded at the agents. "Now take him." They dragged Brad through the diner, the glass doors swinging wide as the outside world descended. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, microphones thrust forward. The bully who had once owned every room he entered now shrank against the tidal wave of judgment. Brad Morrison, is it true you attacked a veteran? Do you have anything to say to the people you insulted? Were you aware he was the father of the Homeland Security Director? Brad tried to cover his face, but the handcuffs made it impossible. The flashbulbs only illuminated his downfall. Back inside, the diner exhaled, the tension finally breaking. Patrons gathered around Sam, some shaking his hand, others simply nodding in quiet respect. Maria set a fresh cup of coffee in front of him, her hand steadier now. "You okay, Mr. Carter?" she asked softly. Sam smiled faintly, settling back onto his stool. "Better than ever," he said. Through the window, the crowd watched as Brad was loaded into a police cruiser, his empire of intimidation crumbling in real time. The instant karma was undeniable. And in that diner, for the first time in a long while, justice felt not like an idea, but like something everyone could see, hear, and believe in. Outside the diner, the flashing lights painted the morning sky in red and blue. Brad Morrison, once the loudest voice in town, sat slumped in the back of a police cruiser. His empire of fear had collapsed in minutes. No one jeered now, no one clapped him on the back. Instead, phones captured his humiliation from every angle. The same arrogance he'd used to crush others had made him infamous overnight. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. Patrons who had sat in silence earlier now approached Sam Carter, their faces heavy with regret and respect. A few offered quiet apologies, not for their own words, but for their silence when Brad spewed his venom. Sam accepted each with a nod. Maria poured him a fresh coffee, her voice low. "I don't know how you kept so calm." Sam's gaze rested on his hands, scarred from a life of service. "Because I've seen worse than a bully with a loud mouth. And I learned long ago, dignity is the one weapon no man can strip from you." Michael Carter remained by his father's side, a shield not just of blood, but of principle. Reporters gathered outside, their cameras flashing against the glass. Yet Michael made no speech. Instead, he placed a hand on his father's shoulder and said, "You've spoken enough for both of us." By evening, the video had gone viral. Headlines exploded across the internet. Racist bully slaps elderly veteran, learns his son runs Homeland Security. Small-town diner becomes ground zero for justice. From slap to slam, bully arrested after attacking black veteran. The world watched the slap. They replayed the moment Sam didn't fight back but chose calm. They shared the clip of agents flooding the diner, addressing him as sir. And they repeated his words, "Strength isn't in noise. It's in restraint. Power is in truth." In days, Brad Morrison's businesses closed their doors. His so-called friends vanished. The community that once tolerated his cruelty now recoiled, ashamed they had ever let him dominate them. But Sam Carter didn't gloat. He didn't seek revenge. He walked the same streets with the same quiet dignity, only now people stopped him, not to whisper or avoid his gaze, but to shake his hand, to thank him, to say they were sorry. Maria organized a community meeting at the diner, where neighbors vowed to stand together against hate, no matter the form it took. For the first time, the town felt different, like a place where silence would no longer protect the loudest voice, but the right one. Sam returned to his corner booth, cane at his side, coffee steaming before him. He didn't need to remind anyone who his son was. That wasn't the lesson. The lesson was simple, and it echoed far beyond the walls of that diner. Respect should not depend on who a person is related to. It should be given because every human being deserves it. And in that truth, the town found its justice. And that's how a loudmouth bully, who thought he could humiliate a quiet old man, ended up exposed, arrested, and remembered not for his power, but for his downfall. Sam Carter didn't need to throw a punch. He didn't need to raise his voice. With calm, dignity, and the truth on his side, he showed the world that real strength isn't about intimidation, it's about restraint, respect, and character. Brad Morrison thought the diner was his stage, but in the end, it became the stage for his own destruction. And the world? The world was watching. Speech balloon, what do you think? Did Brad get exactly what he deserved, or should justice have gone even further? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. And if this story gripped you, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss more powerful stories like this one. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and always stand for what's right.